All right, we're gonna talk about Pluribus. What we're gonna do
All right.
is a quick
This is the real one.
spoiler-free, and then I will banish you guys from our realm.
I will start by saying I think Joe would really like this one, and I think Tyler would even really like the first 2 episodes. I could see you getting turned off after that because this show does go. I didn't think this show was slow until after I finished and I read other people's opinions, but
I felt the same way. I think watching this weekly is what broke people. But the thing is, one season binge is not enough for Tyler. I don't think Tyler should touch this until it's all done, and then he probably still won't like it, is my opinion.
I do think if Tyler just watched the first 2 episodes and there's no pressure to watch anything after that, just the first 2 episodes isolated, I think he would even get enjoyment out of.
That would probably be the
Oh
best
man,
move.
that sounds like horny tax.
Does sound like
It
horny
is.
tax.
Anyway, this is a good show.
He said it is. No, it's not. But
I don't know. So you're talking about no spoiler reviews. What do you consider no spoiler for this?
did you like it? And you recommended it to Joe, and then when you're itching to talk about some stuff, we can talk. The thing is, I went in without fully knowing the premise. Bradley went in without really knowing the premise. I really think that's the move. Now, the longer
I didn't
you
know
guys,
anything at all.
the longer you guys take to not watch the show, is the easier the premise will be spoiled to you one day. So that is the one warning I give. And you know what? Watch those first 2 episodes, and then don't watch anything if you need, just so the premise is in your head and you got to see it.
I'll say like it feels like the first episode is a spoiler, not quite to the degree that Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is, but like I don't know. I feel like even if I talked fully about the first episode, it would take away from the experience of someone else watching it.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Which is why I haven't wanted to talk about it. But yeah, I think a lot of people will consider the show slow, so that's something to go into it. And I even mentioned that when we were talking about it. It's like this show is so not for everyone. But I was talking about shows that let you breathe in their world and really experience what the characters are feeling, and how I really like that. Something that came up in Lost.
Because
And
that's the thing. I did not consider this to be a slow show at all because all of the stuff that was happening every moment was stuff that I was there to see. I think a lot of people wanted this show to be some kind of like ragtag group grabs their guns and tries to figure out how to solve the problem type show. And if that's what you want to see, I could see why the show feels slow. I went in with the attitude that is like it is all about how the main character is feeling and how she's coping with this situation.
Yeah.
And
Which
so I
is-
never felt like the show was slow, is because that's always the stuff I was looking
And
for.
there's always something to dig in with that in mind. And I think that's how I pitch it to you guys in Media of the Year. Um, but yeah, the thing with this show is it is in the era of like it's going to be 2 years till next season or so. So I brought Bradley into Hell with me, where we wait, and they're already shit posting. Vince Gilligan shows have the most talented editors in the fan base alive, because I'm sure you've seen those edits of like Walter and Jesse and Hank playing Mario Kart. Like that's the level they operate on. So that's what we're gonna have to feed off of for the next few years until the next season. So that is one downside, but it is so worth it. This is like I said, one season in, I'm mesmerized by this show. Already one of my favorite shows. That said, if y'all have any questions, shoot them. If not, say goodbye to the folks at home.
I don't. I will watch Pluribus when I watch it. But
Good.
We'll get around to it eventually,
Yeah.
maybe, possibly, quite potentially.
Yeah. But it was great talking to y'all. I'm sorry we're late, but that's life.
Yeah.
Honestly, not as bad as it could have been, considering it's our January cast.
Sure.
Pretty happy with that. Without further ado, I banish thee.
Bye.
Vanish, bye.
All
Now we
right.
can really get started.
All right. What are you thinking, Bradley? Tell me. Hit me.
So, I think I told you after I finished this that I didn't really have to deliberate at all. I considered this a 10 out of 10 show. And And like, it should have gone higher in our media of the year. I don't know if it would have. I still don't know if it would have cracked any of our top 5 because our top 5 was very contentious. But I think it could have been on that top row.
That's what I would have liked, but also like being the only person that watched it, I was like, top 30 is good enough for me, which is where it landed. Given that this will come back in future seasons, and I only assume the show's gonna get better and better because if you remember season 1 of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, they're easily the worst seasons of those shows. They're still great, but these creators know how to ramp it up and really make you care about the characters more and more with time. So like how I feel about this show expanded to like I think they're planning for like 4 seasons. I can't even imagine how much I'm gonna enjoy this show by that point. I really don't think they would.
That's wild. And this thing you mentioned 4 seasons. I told you before I had watched the show, I had asked you guys, does this show only have 1 season? And you all answered yes because there's only 1 season out. And I realized what I meant to ask is this show only going to be 1 season? And so the entire time I was watching this, I thought it was going to wrap up by the final episode. So I couldn't have possibly predicted how it actually went. And I'm extremely pleased how it actually went. I think we have something very interesting here.
Yeah, no, I guess I misunderstood. Yeah, the plan is 4 seasons. Recently, Rhea Seehorn won 2 awards, like a Golden Globe and an Emmy, for her role as Best Actress, which is
I think deserved,
so
dude.
Good because the entire Better Call Saul cast got cucked for 6 seasons in a row, despite like fantastic TV, like both on the storytelling, directing, and acting side. And I feel like this show exists for Rhea Seehorn to become the star that she is, and that's what Vince says. He's like, I want to go as long as Rhea can, so that the world can know what a rock star she is. And fuck yeah, she is. More importantly than anything, she is so fucking funny in this show with her.
She was amazing as an actress in Better Call Saul. So the fact, like, yeah, she gets to just like really be front and center in her own show is incredible. And yet she gets the full range of human emotion here. Like, we get scenes of her just in soul-crushing depression, but also her being fucking hilarious.
Yeah, she's the show was pitched. This is the only thing I knew is the most miserable person on the planet has to save the world from happiness. That was the misleading tagline that they advertised the show with. And I think it's a quite clever tagline.
It's a very good tagline.
Once you boil down to the final 13 and you don't know about Manuosos, who is maybe more miserable, this is the most miserable woman, and she does need to save the world from quote-unquote happiness. And I think it's also really cool that, like, for as enigmatic as she was as Kim, I was like, is this going to feel like Kim? It's like, is Kim just her personality? No, she feels completely different as Carol. So I think that goes to say a lot for the role there. Though she has a lot of, like, you know, the Kimisms, especially when she's like angry or like she's like tightening her jaw and like upset about things. So yeah, this show is, like you said, if you're expecting people to go solve the problem, maybe season 4 we will be like gung-ho about stop. What I imagine is we gotta stop them from creating the antenna in Africa or something. That's like the only kind of climax we could build to that's action-packed. I think, though, it's more likely that this is going to stay as like a low-key struggle of like the few humans left. But we can get into future predictions a bit later. Where do we go with this? Do you have any like points you want to talk about? Because I could take it many places.
One thing I will say, sitting in front of me during each episode, because obviously you don't have the full info even by the end of episode 1. You kind of get sprinkled a little bit more info just about these things and how they work and, you know, their rules and their motivations and even the other survivors over the course of the series. And so throughout, at the end of each episode, I was kind of writing down my thoughts of like, what would I do if I was in Carol's shoes at this point in time? And it's really funny because, I don't know. I would have had a very different journey than she would have. I don't. Going based on my notes, I would not have been at that first meeting of the English speakers. My first reactions were a lot closer to Manusos's, which I'm not nearly the badass he is. I would have caved to hunger weeks before he did.
We'll talk about him in a sec.
But my first reactions were much more similar to him, where I was very distrusting because, like, in the first episode, they give her that whole spiel about how, like, oh, we have the collective knowledge and memories of every human on Earth. And my mind just immediately went to, you also have the memories and skills of every liar and master manipulator ever born.
Mhm.
And so, like, I don't think I would have even been able to have come out of the house to go to this meeting because I would have been like, where are you actually going to take me? I have no way to verify what you're saying is true. And even if I did do that and I went to the meeting of the English speakers, I would be like, how do I know all of these people or even any of these people are survivors? What if I am the only one and they were lying to me about this? Because eventually by episode 5, Kim is able to deduce
Kim,
like
Carol.
for it, like Kim, Jesus Christ, she's able to deduce, and this isn't even coming from them, she is able to deduce it herself, that they just can't tell lies because she's like, if they were capable of lying, they would have lied about this thing.
I love how she got it out of them too, with like, okay, so you have Helen's memories. What did she think? And they were so uncomfortable answering that question.
And so that's the thing, like, after that point, like, with the knowledge that they can't lie, that changes everything for me. But up until that point, I was like, I probably would have just been locked in my house.
The thing is, it's like they were so non-threatening right off the gate. I think I would interact with them in a similar way as her,
Like,
and
just ask questions.
and poke away and ask them questions. I think the thing that's so important about Carol, because she was a miserable person before this, and she's got a very layered past that they only touch on a little bit, but I think it explains a lot about her character. She is the perfect protagonist to get us through this story in a way that is like, she is solving the problem at a slower pace than someone who's locked the fuck in. If there's a fusion of Manuosos and Carol that exists on the planet and they were the person left, they would be a lot further than both of them, you know, like
Yeah.
someone who's able to interact with them and has that emotionality to them, but someone who has the drive of Manuosos would be like the perfect survivor. I think it's interesting, right? Because the first thing that made me take a pause in this show is like, I don't know how to feel about the fact that the other survivors accepted this so quick. Now, it's a sample size, and I think there's something really interesting about how that scene is shot. We're in the Air Force One. Carol's making her emboldened speech about their imperative to save the human race. There's an American flag behind her in the screen in Air Force One. It got me thinking, it's like, is this my Western brain kind of getting in the way of like what would be logical to think about in this situation?
Dude, I had that same thought because I was like, to another culture, is what is going on more reasonable? I've done a lot of reading on like the differences between Western Hemisphere philosophy and Eastern Hemisphere philosophy, and how the West is so hyper focused on like the individual, like
Yes.
everybody's feelings and experiences are important, and like you can't sacrifice just one person for the whole. And Eastern philosophy is more about like doing what is best for everyone.
And
And
almost all
see,
of them are Eastern, except for
Yeah.
Diabates. I don't know how to say his name.
Oh, you're closer than I would be.
Yeah, they're all Eastern, right? And more importantly, and this kind of like fucked me up when I thought about it. They kept all their loved ones, and the Hive is really good at imitating people until it doesn't need to. Um, which we'll talk about what the Hive actually is, because like, are they even imitating people? Are they still in there? We don't have those answers yet. We can take theories, but like Lakshmi's kid is her kid. When the Asian guy who's like, she don't know they do that, which was just a very funny line read. When he's eating the dinner with his like daughter and wife, they're acting like human beings. You can tell like they're still themselves in there. They're only weird every once in a while when you ask them like what a gynecologist would do about something, and they tap into their memory and they can't lie. But if you're someone who you're in the eastern side of the world, the only people you care about are still acting as themselves, you will, I think, enter this state of cognitive dissonance or just acceptance where like I'm not gonna think about how fucked up this is. The people around me are acting normal, and I'm just gonna take solace in that. Carol lost the only person in her life immediately. If Helen was alive, Carol would have folded like 2 weeks in. Is my
Yeah.
thought, because one thing is like Lakshmi is like, you didn't ask what it's like for them. Like obviously these people had connections still alive, quote unquote. If hard to talk about like the collective in that way.
Carol's like, why would I give a shit what it's like for them? No one I care about is left.
Right, like because all their family members were still alive, they were able to appease them in a much calmer way than scared Carol, who had no Helen, had to talk to not the president, but just a guy that was wearing a suit around and have that explained to her, and then gets a pirate lady that flies from another country to show up on her doorstep. But if Helen was always there, Carol would have like folded and gone with the wave a lot easier. And she fought it for a long time, but the crippling loneliness gets to her, and that is why like shit is always happening in this show. It is the journey of her fighting against it, faltering. Manu also shows up. She's still not ready to let go because she just started accepting the collective and Zosha as like something in her life, and then they drop that last bomb on her, and she's like, okay, I can't go with the wave. There's really no way out of this. We have to save the world now. And that journey to me is more interesting than if it was just a hyper competent character that solves this issue in like 2 seasons. Like, what do we do after that? You know?
100%. Like in episode 7, when Carol is sitting there and there is a firework aimed at her face. At that point in the episode, I don't think there's been a single word spoken in the past like 15 minutes of the episode. But that doesn't mean nothing's happening. That is like that's like the most tense scene of the show for me.
Yeah, that show had me jaw open. I want to talk about episode 7 because that is the episode, and I went back. I was like, because when Pluribus was coming out, everyone was really high on it. When the season was over, I was seeing a lot of negativity. I wasn't like reading too into it because I didn't want to know what the show was about. But the wave was coming, and I was like, what was the moment where it turned for them? When I was watching the show, I was like, it's this episode. It's episode 7. I went back and checked. It was absolutely episode 7. But I told you guys at the media of the year, that's the episode where the show became like a 10 out of 10. I love this show for me.
I messaged you during that episode, and I was like, this is peak moment. But as I was messaging you, I was like, how do I know I'm going to go online? And the very same thing I'm saying is the best part of the show is going to be the thing that everybody says fucking sucks.
And like, I get it. It's an episode where it's just like the characters are going through 2 parallel journeys and nothing's quote unquote happening. So much is happening on every scene. First of all, it is gorgeous. The journey of Manu Osos to cross multiple countries to get to Carol, just on the car part alone, is such a powerful like visual storytelling moment. He's learning English. By the time he gets to the jungle, the human spirit on display had me like jaw opened. I was like, holy shit.
He's like, there is nothing you can give me because everything you have is stolen.
Oh my god.
I got fucking goosebumps. And it doesn't stop there. Even in like the last episode when he's reading electronics for beginners it's in English. And he's having to go back and forth with his English-Spanish dictionary. I'm like, to me, that's not just showing how much of a badass he is. That is continuing on his theme of he is the character who is fully committed to the strengths of humanity. And it's like every human who is alive right now is standing on the backs of giants who came before him. And that is what he is doing there when he's learning about electricity to stop whatever antenna thing they're looking at. He is committed to not getting that knowledge from the hive mind. He is getting it from the humans who came before him, who left that knowledge here for him.
Fucking chills, bro. And it's so good. But yeah, as he's going through that journey, and he's got, my name is Manosos Oliveira, I am not one of them, I want to save the world. And they just repeat that, and he's walking through the jungle, and he's going through it. Carol's going through a very different story, because while he was hiding out, you know, he has his own spirit. Carol was facing this world by herself and like trying to figure out the solution. Everyone is either curving her because they got her family, or they're playing Casino Royale in Vegas like Diabates and role playing the world, which people will be a lot closer to him than I think they care to admit in how they would handle the situation. But she's facing it all alone. But around episode 6 and 7, she just can't. Like, the loneliness is getting to her. It's been over a month. The dreadfulness of the situation, there's no fixing it. Even the knowledge that they eat human beings is something all the other survivors know. She has nothing to go off, right? So that episode is her first time, like, lavishing in the world. She found out they cannot take her because they need the stem cells. So she's running on a high. She's even bullying the collective at this point. And then she starts actually enjoying her life as quote unquote enjoying it. You can tell it's very hollow. She's going to these fancy restaurants.
She tries to kind of take the advice of the Mauritanian dude after she learns that there's no deadline, which he's just like the opportunist. He's like, just try to have as much fun as you can in this situation. And she tries to do what he does as hard as she can, but it's just not enough for her.
Which builds up to the scene of her with the fireworks and the scene where Manosos is dying in the woods, and it's like our characters' journeys have like reached an interesting crossing point where they're both like at their lowest in very different ways from very different directions that they haven't even met yet. Next season, those two, like, I cannot wait to see what they get up to, man. Because when they finally meet, they're not on the same page. It takes up until the last scene where it's like, fuck it, let's go save the world, right? So that was
really great.
Good.
Because they are different in some ways. Like earlier you were like, oh, a Carol and him combined would be way further along. They are alike in one very particular way, where like Carol whenever she meets Manusos, I think she is meeting herself in a way. Yeah. Whenever she's on Air Force One trying to talk to the other survivors, I think she's right. We've all seen this disaster movie. We know this isn't the way it's supposed to be. But Carol is a very, like it says, she's, like the tagline says, she's the most miserable person on earth. And she's not a good saleswoman. And she's a little insulting and standoffish when she tries to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And it reminded me of this thing I saw recently where it's a Seth Rogen thing. It's called Santa Incorporated, and it's all about this little, she's this woman elf at the North Pole, and her deal is the guy in the role of Santa's retiring, and she wants to be the first woman Santa Claus. And the whole movie's kind of about that. And around the end, Santa Claus comes to her and he's like, you know what? You've really impressed me. He's like, all of your ideas on how to mix up Christmas and our operations at the North Pole are incredible. But he's like, you can't be Santa. And she's like, why the fuck not? Because that was her whole goal. And he's like, you don't like kids. And they don't like you. I can just tell. He's like, there's no warmth to you. They don't like you. You're standoffish. And she's kind of insulted at first. She's like, I think it's kind of bullshit that you say I can't be Santa just because I'm not warm and cuddly like you are. And he's like, for Santa, the entire job description is being warm and cuddly. And so he kind of offers her basically to let her run the North Pole while someone else is a figurehead Santa. But his whole kind of point is like, you catch more flies with honey. And it's not enough to just be right. You have to meet people on their level. And Carol doesn't do that. Like, I agree with her goal. This isn't right. We should try to fix this situation. She doesn't have a good way of connecting with people and meeting them on their level to do that. And when she meets Manusos after this whole journey he's done, he is just like trying to command her. He's snapping at her face and he's like, we're talking in the ambulance and he won't hear anything. And she's like, fuck you, you can get back in your ambulance, I'm going back inside. And to them, I'm like, that's a personality trait they share, where to them it's just like, I'm right. Why the fuck are you not doing what I say? Instead of like wondering, hey, what would this other person like to hear, maybe?
Yeah, and it's so important that these are our two protagonists because like they're too flawed to do this cleanly. And I think it just leads it to be a more interesting character study. And also, but also we did move the plot along. We talked to all the other survivors by episode 2. We know so much about them by like episode 5. And then the last few episodes are more character focused, but we are constantly learning stuff like, oh, we're immune. They can't get our stem cells. Yada yada. We're learning more. We're like actually hanging out with them. We're dating the Hive. I did not expect this to become a Hive dating simulator, but we sure did. And goddamn, are they charming? We're actually like covering so much ground every episode. I feel where it's like I don't know. I feel like we know 70% of the story so far. We know where they're from,
Yeah.
even like the planet. We know what the collective knows about their creators, which is not much because they're 600 million light years away or whatever. But like, I
I
don't
really
know.
appreciated that about them. Before starting this, you told me it kind of gave you three body problem vibes, and
Yeah.
it 100% gave me at least three body problem book vibes. I did not like the show, but that's the thing. The whoever sent this signal, they sent this DNA sequence, but this hive mind, they don't know about the planet that sent that out because in order to know that, the original signal would have had to carry all that information. And there's only so much information you can encode in the signal. So
It's just the virus,
whoever
really.
it
And
was
the,
just the
and
virus.
the
So
and the biological imperative that comes with it.
yeah, and so the hive mind is just like, I mean, we will probably never really know all
But
the info about
but it's
these
interesting
people.
because they like dream about it. They have it's I can't wait to get more scenes with the collective because like
They are
there's
their own character.
there's three characters in this show. There's Carol Manuosos and then the collective, and they are a very interesting character. That like every little
Because
tidbit
that's the
I get
thing.
is so good.
They have a conversation with Carol whenever she like later around like episode maybe even 8, she's finally talking to them and they're like, Carol, we have the memories and experiences of everyone who's ever lived, no matter how good and bad it is. They're like, we know what it is like to be you. You do not know what it is like to be us.
One thing they said that kind of crushed me because I was like, "Fuck, I don't know how to respond to that." Is like, if you saw someone drowning, would you not immediately save them, no matter what? Even if they told you not to save them, it's like you would probably find it in your heart to jump in there and be like, "Figure it out later," but I am gonna save you. That's how they view the human race. It's like if that's truly how you view us, I don't know what to say. Like, okay, let's talk about how we interpret these things. Is the hive evil?
I don't think they're. I genuinely think they want what is best for living things outside of their collective. They have their biological imperatives, and they're not just imperatives. I think those imperatives come along with emotions that are making them smile. They are just. It is a non-human existence that it's hard for us to understand. Whenever at the beginning of the final episode, when what's her name?
Kusamayo, something like that.
Yeah, she joins the collective, and so they are doing basically a ritual from her culture to make this transition more comfortable for her and make it meaningful for her. And the instant she joins them, they just drop the whole charade and
Which
go
is
back
the
to
most
full.
horrifying scene of the show, by the way.
It's really unsettling. And I watched one YouTuber say that scene shows that they're not actually as nice as they pretend to be, and I'm like, that's a total misread. I think they are earnest in everything they express emotionally to the survivors. It's just in that moment, it's not a shift from them pretending to be nice to her to being cold and emotionless. I think it is just they stopped having a reason to pretend in that moment, so they stopped pretending. There's nothing nefarious there.
It's not even that. It's like I'm about to share a Reddit thread I found that someone had a really interesting take on this. Their take was in that moment, now that she's in the collective, she is being flooded with all the happiness and all the warm feelings that they had in that cultural moment. But now they're just how she lives. That feeling of happiness and love is just the world that she must exist in now. So we don't have to keep doing it. We don't have to talk anymore about it. We don't have to sing anymore about it. Just by being near each other, we are exchanging maximum love with one another, which is like it is the death of culture, and it's really sad in that way. But it's also not as evil and unsettling as that scene initially seems. But as a human being, it's still incredibly unsettling. But I'm with you. To them, like I think this is all by the books. Like they're truly looking out for us in their own fucked up way, which is a weird antagonist for us to deal with in this show because I genuinely don't think they're evil as well.
From the perspective of this hive mind, to them, they are the equivalent of just a regular Joe Schmo living their life the only way they know how, the best they can.
And they're
They
so
they don't know anything different than what they are doing in this show.
yeah, and there's something to that. There's like a lot of people that would join the hive. They say, I am too much of an individual, so it creeps me out. But it probably genuinely feels as amazing as they say. Um, but we'll see. I also think the way that they like power flex the hive is really interesting. I think one of the most interesting power scaling feats in a piece of media I've seen is the hive getting a sprouts together in like an hour, 20 minutes. I was like, this is actually like really impressive that they just did this
That
on
was
a
pretty
whim.
cool.
But then just like I didn't even understand this. In the beginning of episode 2, we see Zosha for the first time, but I didn't even realize it was her till I finished the show. She like gets on a plane, gets clean, and flies over to the U.S. because they're like, we found the Raban, we found what's gonna charm her.
Like the one human out of 8 billion who's like the most perfect for what they want.
They're incredibly efficient. I also like how like they can't hurt you, but they did have one form of attack, and I thought it was horrifying, which was surrounding Carol and having so many people say please Carol that it was genuinely like harming her. It was just too much stimulus. I was like,
That's the thing.
that's very interesting.
They can't like harm a living thing, but I was wondering to what degree do they have a self-preservation instinct? Because I'm like, if Carol legitimately threatened to just nuke the entire planet with like 900 nukes, they wouldn't allow that to happen, right?
We need more information. There, I can see a story where yes and no are both valid answers to with a gradient of like
Yeah.
I think they would strongly, at the very least, strongly stop her. Maybe like make a wall of people and force her to push her way through. Because the thing is also like they want you to be happy. They genuinely do. They will follow your orders because they want you to be as happy as possible until you can join their happiness. But their biological imperative is more important. They will go through your autonomy, they will go through your consent and make you join because like that is actually number one for them, and the happiness comes number two. So if it like they're okay with inconveniencing Carol, they may not harm her or attack her, but they would probably do everything possible, even if it pisses her off, which includes like when they left the town. Like obviously that's she's gonna be upset by that. But
And
it's
man,
like
you don't even have to put happiness at number 2 on their hierarchy of needs because to them, happiness is kind of number 1. You joining the collective
Yeah.
is for your own happiness. I'm like,
and the number 2 or 3 part would be like, we'll make you happy until you join because we're just like that nice. But you will join, motherfucker. We got your stem cells, which was a great thing. Cool thing about Carol that I've been thinking about. She mentions that when she was young, she was put through a conversion camp. Because Carol is lesbian. She's
Yes.
married with Helen, and I thought like it wasn't very clear to me at first. But there's this cool moment in episode 1. They're outside right before the chemtrail planes go through, and she looks around the street, sees that no one's there, and then puts her chin on Helen's shoulder. And that's like a very Carol way of showing affection in a very like closeted way where it's like it was not okay for her to be gay. Also, she writes her books from the perspective of a heterosexual woman. Um, and it kind of also ties into the backlash of the show a little bit where like if this was not a middle-aged lesbian woman who was this grumpy, they would call this like Mark Ehrmantraut-esque like badass character, but because it's Carol, she's called a Karen and annoying. But that's like a whole nother thing to unpack.
that's a cool angle. And like, yeah, I like you just talking about it, that deliberate decision to have her look around first before, leaning on Helen. It's the little things that matter.
And it's like that conversion is probably triggering something in her where it's like now they're trying to convert me and put me in the hive. Because I don't think she has it like her first instinct in her heart is not the human patriotism or like racism, whatever the bigger scale of patriotism would be, where it's like we need to save humanity because it's the right thing to do. It is that she is so individual in her heart and has been trying to be converted into something else in the past, and that kind of highlights how reserved she is and the kind of grumpy person she is. I think stems from her poor family life, and that's why like even while going on trips with Helen, she's still like a very reserved person when they went to like Iceland or whatever. Um, so it's like I feel like her initial reason for pushing back is that like trauma of trying to get that individuality taken away from her, and now it's happening again on a much larger scale. But eventually, the loneliness gets to her because she doesn't have her Helen. It was like the one thing anchoring her. So like I'm dying for like a flashback of what Carol's life was before Helen. If we ever get that, because it'd be really interesting.
I get some.
So it's just really interesting. Well, the journey the show takes to break her down, and we haven't talked about Zosha much, who I think is a very interesting character, but it's like kind of hard to talk about her as a singular character.
Like, her as a character is the hive mind,
Yeah.
and which the actress does amazing, and I don't know, she is kind of the stand-in. I mean, she is the stand-in for the hive mind, and I saw one person describe this show as this is on the surface you might think it is a post-apocalyptic sci-fi. In reality, this is it's a love story dressed up in post-apocalyptic sci-fi. It is a woman who lost the person she loved, and she is struggling to continue living after that, and struggling with the fact that she is attracted to this new person thing.
And like I mentioned, they're so charming. That scene where they're playing like putt-putt or whatever, or cricket.
Yeah.
And she's like, maybe you just suck, Carol. And then they beam up, you suck, Carol, on the stadium screen. I was like, that is so charming, actually. Like,
And
I'm getting kind of drawn into this hive.
this show came at a really interesting time because just about a week before I watched this, in my phone, I'm constantly taking notes about like different like archetypes and stories I like, and like grouping together different stories that have these archetypes. And a really uncommon one is stories where someone ascribes human characteristics to something that is not human because they want it to be true.
Yeah, that is 100% the show.
I think of maybe the most widespread example of my list I could probably point out would be in Life of Pi. He tells the story of going on the boat with this tiger, and I'm not talking about like the meta narrative in that story. I'm talking about the story in a story. Like,
Yeah.
let's
I haven't
assume
watched Life
that
of
there was a
Pi,
tiger.
but I understand the gist of it.
Like let's assume that there actually was a tiger. There probably wasn't, but he's telling a story that there is a tiger. At the end of his journey with this tiger, and they've been on this boat for months and months and months, they finally get on land, and the tiger runs up to the edge of the forest, and it pauses for about 30 seconds. And Pi looks at it, and he's had such a journey with Richard Parker because, you know, he gave the tiger a name, and they've grown to understand each other. They each kind of had their own territory. They had a routine with each other, and he almost grew to view this tiger as a person. And so at the end of their journey, when this tiger's at the edge of the jungle, he is waiting for this tiger to glance back at him because he's like, that's just what you do.
In the
After
goodbye
being-
scene, yeah.
That's just what you do after being on a long journey with someone. You say goodbye, or he's a tiger, so he can't say goodbye, but he'll at least glance back with me. And it doesn't do that. It just starts acting like a wild animal. It just starts acting like a tiger, and it runs off into the jungle. And there's this huge moment where he's realizing that he's like, it's not human, and you can't expect it to act like one. And I think that's what Carol does here, where she's been courting Zosha for the past 2 episodes, like the last 2
The
episodes. She's
correction,
basically dating her.
she's also being courted. They're very smart. All the
Yeah.
best pickup artists are in there. But
Pretty good at it. But then she reaches this point where I think the hive mind mentions that they love the other survivors, including Manusos, who wants to murder them. And Carol's like, no, you don't. You love me. She's like, you love me. And she's like, Carol, we love all of them just as much and in exactly the same way as we love you, which is Carol's moment of like, they're not us. And I can't pretend they're us.
I will also say, it's not just her being jealous. It's also the concept of like you don't know him. Like it's not just like the jealous ex angle, which is I think how people will immediately read that scene. It's like you have not interacted with this guy. He just showed up. You don't even know him. So like trying to attribute like even if it was like even if you were a human, how would you love someone else? It's like he doesn't even pass the prerequisites for you to love him. So like how can you love him as much as me? Even besides the fact that we're having great sex together and all that. So it's like it's very much what you're saying of like attributing human logic to how this hive thinks.
And I don't know, they were very fascinating in that regard. You were talking about the conversion camps, and I think that comes up in episode 9 when they're at the ski lodge. I think that's when Carol opens up about it. And she is, and then after she opens up about the conversion therapy camp is when she learns that they actually do have her stem cells and they're working on converting her.
Such a good
And
twist.
they're like, Carol, they don't say all this word for word, but like the whole point is like this hive mind, they are everyone who has ever had to gone through the horrors of a conversion therapy camp. They're also everyone who's ever worked at a conversion therapy camp. They know what she's talking about. But then Zosha is like, Carol, you want to convert us. You want to change us back. And it's like, Carol, you have this privileged perspective where you think it's okay to turn us because you're human and we're not, but like are humans inherent? We're our own type of life in the universe.
But
what makes humans more important than us?
But everything you have is stolen. Manuel's 2026, so it's like
Just like their point of view, it's like, Carol, if we give you what you want and you convert us, that's you wiping out a whole species of people doing the only thing they know how. And so I don't know, it's a horror from their perspective, but it makes sense.
And that's what I love about like how they're pacing this story. They're leaving enough room for you to have like for the audience to have a lot of different opinions on a lot of different points of the story. It's very not black and white. A lot of people will see it that way, but even then there is like nuances to every little layer of this discussion of like what's right, what's wrong, what is acceptable. It's just fascinating to think and talk about. I'm trying to think of like another point I have to bring up. Um, so what do you think this virus actually is? Because I think this is a weapon. Well, I don't think we'll ever get the answer to this, by the way. Nor will we. We definitely will never see the aliens, and we'll probably never get an answer to this. But I think this is a weapon akin to what you explained to me, like how three body problem works. Is like you're in the forest and someone got the signal, and it's kind of scary because it's like you're out there. I'm gonna go ahead and destroy you before you can become a threat, just out of self-preservation. This is a very humanitarian way to do it. I can even picture on this planet they had an ethics committee about destroying planets far away, and they came with a solution where it's like, we're going to kill them with kindness. We're going to send a virus that pacifies the entire planet. They're going to have a great time. They would never even dream of attacking us back, though. So we win the war with no bloodshed. And that's kind of fascinating to think about. And I think that I feel like in my head canon, which again I don't think will ever be confirmed, that is the story of the pluribus virus. Which, by the way, people call it the pluribus virus. I don't know if that's the official name or if we just call it that.
Yeah.
That's the name of the show. But what do you think about that?
I love how little answers that we and the hive mind have, because the planet 600 light years away that sent this signal out, they might not even be the original people who developed the signal. They could be just like Earth, where they received it.
Oh, for sure.
They
I
got
actually
all
think it's most likely that they're not.
Like, Earth could be the 20th generation for all we fucking know. And it could have just all started with some alien race who's like, this is the only way to end war.
Yeah.
I don't know. We don't know, and I love that we don't know.
And so how do you feel about the idea that we won't ever get all these answers?
I would be okay with it. That's one of the things I liked in Three Body Problem is that, like, just due to the nature of the universe, things are far apart and time passes. Like, some stuff is just out of reach, and it's the wondering is what makes it cool. The mystery is what makes it cool, and I kind of like to keep the mystery there.
I agree, and I think we have enough to at least like be able to theorize, and I think that's fun. And again, we're gonna get way more in the
I want
upcoming
them
seasons.
Here's what I envision. I want them to drip feed us some more information, but I'll still be fine if we never get the full answers. You know what I mean?
That's what's gonna happen. Like I'm almost certain that we're not done learning about them. We're gonna learn more and more every season, but there's never gonna be the flashback of Pluribus Prime, what happened the day where we set the signal. That's never gonna happen.
Because like the 3 body problem books, this is 3 entire books about a war between 2 planets that spans like 1,000 years. You never learn what the aliens look like. No human ever actually even encounters one.
That's sick.
And
yeah.
So like, I don't know. The mystery is cool.
And I feel like we're headed down that road. Where do you think this show is going, though, in the actual plot? If we're outside of the mysteries, what do you envision for future seasons of the show, if anything?
Well, that's the thing. So about 20 minutes before the end of the final episode, I thought what season 2 was going to be is now Manusos has to like convince Carol that humanity's worth saving. But she kind of got there on her own, right on time, right on the buzzer.
She didn't want to it's heartbreaking that she did, but she got there.
So now I really don't know. I don't know if like the start of season 2 is going to be them genuinely trying to stop whatever this antenna thing is while trying to hide that fact from the hive mind. I don't know if other survivors are eventually going to get tired of this situation and be like, fuck this shit.
Yeah, so I think episode 1 of season 2 is basically written in my mind as either like a Manuoso's flashback episode to kind of explain his time a little bit more, but more importantly, it's going to be Manuosos and Carol learning to get used to each other, and that might even take like the first 3 or 4 episodes, because again, they're both very stubborn. Manuosos doesn't even like his mom, dude. So they're gonna be butting heads those first few episodes. But I think where we're going, we're going to unplurb someone, either season 2 or 3.
Dude, when he had globally paused the hive mind by yelling at them, and he had that dude on his couch, he's like, please hear me, come back, I know you're in there. I was like rooting so hard for them to say something.
He genuinely wants to save them, dude, and I believe they're in there. I do not think that they're erased, and they can be unplurbed, but my question is, when someone gets pulled out, are they going to scream in horror of what they experienced or beg to go back? And I think that is the story of season 2 and 3.
Oh, dude, if they beg to come back, that's a whole season right there.
That breaks everything. That breaks every notion of our Western view of saving the world. If that is the outcome, if we unplurb Zosia and she begs to go back, this show just became incredibly more complex.
I'm both terrified and excited for that to happen.
And I feel like it's very likely. And then I think another thing that could happen is proxy wars with the survivors, which is a crazy concept, right? But this was something that I feel like as of episode 2 was a possibility. We cannot harm you guys, but we cannot stop you from harming each other. What happens when they start weaponizing the plurbs against one another in some way, either with information or genuine, like, I'm going to kill you, Carol, because my son died in your last tantrum or whatever.
Dude, I had a whole bunch. I was talking about my notes, like, as each episode going through, and I had a whole bunch of shit in here from the early episodes of, like, plans for, like, can I keep the other survivors hostage by, like, setting alarms every hour on the hour and screaming at the hive mind? Or even, like, having it at irregular intervals, so, like, no one can fly over here to try to stop me from doing it. I was, like, trying to figure out, like, how can we game this?
I feel like, because, again, they're not really interested in, like, solving this issue as far as, like, a meta-narrative. I don't think that's what Vince is interested in. He's interested in the stories that he can tell in this setting now. And I feel like that is definitely a viable way. Like, maybe not as extreme as we're saying, but there's going to be some form of the survivors turning in on each other. And then the third thing that I think needs to happen is them slowly coming out of, like, the denial stage, the other survivors of this ending, where, like, there one day Lakshmi is gonna wake up and realize her son is just not her son anymore, and he's done too many weird things, and
She's gonna have that moment.
it's gonna happen to all of them. Diabates is gonna get bored of living his like perfect frictionless life. Something's gonna happen, and this seems like more like a later in the story, like season 3, 4 kind of thing, where they're gonna start realizing and kind of some of them are going to agree with Carol. Plus, there's the non-English speakers we got to address. So there's some cool
True.
stuff we can do there.
Yeah, like whenever she in episode 6, because like she hasn't seen the other survivors in like half the season at this point, and she goes and visits the Mauritanian dude who's staying in Vegas, and he mentions they have like a group chat. They talk twice a week, and I'm like, of course they do. And Carol's upset about it, and
She's like, can I join? It's like, we took a vote.
even the non-English speakers are in, and he's like, yeah, they kind of thought it was a dick move to not invite them just because they don't speak English.
I immediately thought of that when she made that fumble, and I'm glad that it's being capitalized on.
But man, he's so interesting because he goes. I told you he goes back and forth from feeling slimy because he has this harem of people who can't possibly consent to it, but then the next minute he'll be insanely charming and see Carol's point of view and
when he cooks her breakfast and like he's actually kind of sweet there and like puts the blanket over her. Like, he's a weird dude. He's a very interesting character, and I'm looking forward to getting more of him.
Because you can tell that entire time he's making her breakfast that he would obviously rather be with her harem, but he never loses his patience with her. He never tries to shoo her out. He's not any less of a good host.
It's like he sees how lonely she is, and he knows that loneliness, but he knows like he doesn't have the inhibitions to live his best life, quote unquote, and he knows that she does, so he's looking out for her in that way, which is oddly sweet.
He was fascinating, and I told you the hardest I laughed in this show is when he stood up after his poker game and did his little one-liner that he pre-rehearsed with the hive mind, and I just died laughing. I was like, this guy's a fucking tool.
Dork. I would definitely have them reenact some of my movies if I was bored. Some of my favorite movies. I would just like be there.
If I'm stuck on this earth with this hive mind anyway, I might as well act out some movies.
I would be saving the world, but I would also be indulging a bit in between. My favorite, my hardest laugh was mi esposa. She didn't like my glug.
Oh yeah,
that is an all-timer line. I love you, Rita Seahorn. Speaking of like the sliminess of Diabates, like, is it rape? Let's talk about the uncomfortable discussion, because also Carol's a rapist then, and I think this can be intentional.
Which is funny. She ends up doing quite a few things. I feel like she like chides the others for doing over the course of the series.
Sure. It's like the thing with Carol is like they also manipulated her because they saw how lonely she was, and they went towards her sexuality, which is like her sexuality is actually a big part of her individuality, because protecting that in her youth is how she grew this shell around herself, right? So they attacked that directly through the perfect woman for her. So it's like, no, she's getting hardcore manipulated, but also, like, if we can get unplurbed and keep our memories, then every child in the world will know what it's like to have sex with Carol. Every old man, every man, woman, like, it's weird, man. It's at least, like, it's at least questionable, almost rapey, but also it's such a weird scenario where it's like, it's not black and white, but yeah, it's, our protagonist does some fucked up things now. Also, bigger mass murderer than Stalin, as she said, which is hilarious.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I was talking about my plan to like keep the hive mind and the other survivors hostage by just constantly yelling at the hive mind. That note was minutes before I learned that 11 million people died from Carol's outburst, and I was like, I'm gonna scratch off that plan.
That was such a good reveal too, where she's like, how many people did I kill? And then she like stopped asking Zosha, and then Lakshmi drops that on her. It's like, did you know you killed 11 million people? Now, what's cool is when
Carol vomited just from thinking it might possibly be thousands.
Yeah, and thank God she was already drunk at that point. Notably, though, Manuosos warned them before he was going to yell at them, so they had time to all, like, sit down. Now, any of them flying a plane better hope that shit has autopilot or they're dead. But I think, like, I'm gonna assume barely or no one died from Wano Oso's doing it. So there's a way to be like, hey, I'm about to do the thing to you. Get somewhere safe. I'm about to lock you down for like an hour, and then do it.
He's a better Carol than Carol.
I guess so. Let smaller body count. All right. You got anything to close us off? Any other bullet points you want to touch on?
I think the only thing in my notes I didn't talk about, which, like, I mean, it's kind of a non sequitur, but it didn't really fit in anywhere else. I thought it was really interesting, like, how excited the hive mind was that Carol was writing again.
Oh!
And there is an element of they're courting her, and they are trying to kind of
No,
manipulate
no, no,
her.
no. This
So
is so important. Actually, thank you for reminding me.
when she is writing, you have to think about it. This hive mind not only has the memory. This hive mind not only wrote every book and movie in existence, they have also been both sides of every debate over every piece of media in existence. So the fact that Carol is writing something new, that is the only possible source of entertainment they could possibly get.
And wow, we didn't talk about the fact that this is AI parallels, but that's very much a thing. Well, I'll just put that on the table if you want to pick it up later,
Yeah.
but it's pretty obvious. But what's interesting here, there's this amazing visual storytelling element, right? Carol has a whiteboard of the next Wakario book, and behind that whiteboard, she has her secret whiteboard of taking notes on the joined. That whiteboard starts getting filled, but that's getting filled almost as her resolve to fight them is reaching its low point, right? And that's when they had that conversation with her about writing the book. And there's a moment where she opens that board, and the back one with the notes on the joined is almost full. And she has the option to erase the front one, but she doesn't. She just keeps writing on the cram whiteboard. She's holding on to that hope of fighting for the Horde. But what was so interesting is that scene gave me this dread where it's like, what if she decides to instead keep the front whiteboard and erase the back one to write more story ideas, signifying her like completely giving up and being like, hey, at least in this world, I can be the one source of inspiration. I can write whatever I want and they will appreciate it and be my true like artist self. But by doing so, she would be erasing her like collected knowledge on how to fight them. And it just, to me, it felt like this very interesting way to visualize both like the idea of like being a part of them, even as an individual, or fighting them. And I just like how it was represented by two whiteboards stacked on top of each other.
No, that's a really cool aspect of it. All I'm thinking about is like when she's talking to Zosha about the ideas for her new book, and Zosha is acting the role of this impassioned fan who is backing and forthing with the author and saying like, "Oh, they can use this thing from book 2," and I was like, God damn it, this would work on me. Like,
Dude,
if I wrote,
it
like,
did.
if I made my own media and someone was this impassioned about it, I'd be all over them.
Dude, then it did work on me. I did not read that as them faking it. That's what's so weird to think about. It's like, is there even a they there? Do they have opinions? Or are they just, like, acting it out? It's hard to say so far. But I genuinely think, like, they're really excited about getting new media, and she's, like, the average excitement level being portrayed at that level, like the collective excitement is being channeled through her. So to me, they're genuinely excited. They're not just trying to charm her there. But maybe I'm being played the fool.
It reminded me of episode 1, which there was, even in episode 1, there was kind of an aspect where I was wondering if the series was going to go down this route, where episode 1 starts with her at this book signing and her book reading, and she fucking hates her stories and she fucking hates the people who read them, but the people who were there, this is like, it's the light of their life. They work 40-hour weeks, and this is what keeps them going. And it's like, maybe just after, even before starting episode 2, I was like, I wonder if this is gonna go a route of like realizing the impact you have on the world, or that there are all kinds of people out there. And I totally forgot about that, because her writing career kind of takes a backseat for 6 or 7 episodes, and then when we get to episode 8, and there's this moment, and I'm like, there are tens of thousands of people inside of Zosho right now who genuinely loved Carol's writing.
Yeah, and even if there's a billion people also in there that hate it, I think the collective need to have something new makes that a genuine excitement for them, or that's how I interpreted it. Uh,
Basically, show good.
Basically, the show is very good. We'll see if we talk about this in the future with others. I'm probably gonna cut this away from the podcast and just have like a little pluribus bonus episode that we recorded on the same day.
Yeah. This was a very good recommend. I watched the first 5 episodes like all in a row. I watched the first 5 episodes like all in one night.
I did
was
too.
very-
I had 2 days left before media of the year, and I tried to cram in as much as possible. And I had just driven back from like Christmas stuff, and I was exhausted. Took a big ass nap. I think I watched Pluribus from like 11 to 6 a.m. Woke up, watched as much Pluribus as I could before you and Joe got to my place, and then finished it that night. It's great.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited more of this show is coming.
Yeah, well, stay excited because that's gonna take you a couple years. Welcome to hell, but let him.
I can't imagine watching this shit weekly.
Yeah.
That would have driven me insane. I'm so glad I was able to binge it.
Even when it comes out in 2 years, I'm probably gonna wait for the whole show to be out. The people who were binging this got real prissy around episode 7. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there mesmerized by the beauty on display, and like, okay, I need to make sure I do this again.
Episode 7 epitomizes that One Piece meme with like, "This pie's so delicious I could die," and Luffy saying, "This pie is so horrible I could die."
That is excellent. We'll leave it off on that note. Bradley, thank you for joining me extra. We went late, but like this was a good. This is going to be its own episode. I've been dying to talk about this.
To talk about today.
Hell yeah! All right, bye everyone. Thanks for joining for. This isn't the podcast anymore, but I hope you enjoyed that. This will probably be uploaded like a day after the podcast, and I'll catch y'all later. Stay pluribin.
That's it.